BBI-sponsored Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 was introduced in Parliament last week as leaders traversed the country to rally support for the bill. I want us now to speak to Leader of Majority in the National Assembly, Amos Kimunya, on what next for the bill, the pending bills in the House and the state of the nation. And thank you so much, Honorable Kimunya, for joining us here on KTN News Center this morning. Good morning.
Morning, Brenda.
So, Honorable Kimunya, as the Leader of Majority, we understand that the bill, the BBI bill, was introduced on the floor of the House simultaneously, at the National Assembly and the Senate Assembly. So when are we likely to see the bill go through the third stage and the committee stage also, the committee of the whole House?
I think the first thing we need to do is between now and the end of this week, is the public participation that will be that's taking place, and then after that we will have the committee retreat for a report in the course of next week, and then they'll bring the report to the House, and then we'll debate the report, and that could well be it.
It won't
so
go through.
By yeah, you're going.
Are you saying that the bill will not go through the normal stages of a bill when it's been introduced on the floor of the House, starting from the first reading, second reading, third reading, committee of the whole House, and then a voting is done?
This is a very unique bill. It's not like the other bills that are introduced in Parliament, and hence we will be, processing it in a unique manner. The committee will be discussing the committee report, not the bill. So the committee will have looked at it, held views with the public, then they'll prepare a report, and when they bring it to the floor of the House, we will then be adopting the report of the committee to either approve or not approve the bill. So it's not like going for second reading or third reading, because there's no amendments anticipated.
Mm-hmm. All right. And are we looking at a position whereby Kenyans might go, to the polls based on, the bill being taken to the people based on the election laws and not the referendum bill? Are we looking at a possibility?
Yeah. The people will be going to the polls. Currently, there's already the Elections Act, which outlines, what happens in the case of a referenda. Now, if perchance we are able to process and finish the referendum bill, then that will guide us at that point, because it will have repealed the provisions within the Elections Act. But if we are not ready by then we'll still use the provisions currently contained in the Elections Act. And I believe there's adequate cover. Yeah.
All right. So let's look at a scenario. What if Parliament, rejects the bill? What message are you sending to Kenyans who are supposed to vote for either to amend the Constitution or not? Because are we looking at a situation whereby, Kenyans will be forced to vote on a bill that the same leaders have rejected?
You see, the overwhelming support that was given to the bill by the county assemblies is an indicator of the success that it will receive in Parliament. Because there's a correlation between what happens at the counties and what happens at the National Assembly. And all the indication we have is members of Parliament will be supporting. So we shouldn't even be worried about or even anticipate in the lists that members of Parliament will do anything different than has been done by the county assemblies.
All right, and Honorable Kimunya, this year's the 2021.
But Brenda, let me, yeah.
All right,
yeah.
Go on.
Brenda, let me just put it for clarity, is that whatever happens, whether Parliament passes it or not, it will still go for referendum. But we believe that the opportunity we have when this debate takes place on the floor of the House is for members of the Parliament, members of the National Assembly and members of Senate to put their views on record for posterity in terms of what their feelings are on this amendment.
And that's what I was asking you, Honorable Kimunya. You're saying that whether members of Parliament pass it or reject it. That's what I was asking you. Why would members of Parliament send to Kenyans a bill that has already been rejected by members of the Parliament? But that's both the National and the Senate Assemblies.
No, the founders of the Constitution anticipated a situation where something could be rejected in Parliament, and then the people themselves would then overturn Parliament. For example, if you brought in an amendment that adversely affects Parliament, you don't expect Parliament to approve it. But the people themselves would then approve it because they are doing it to change the nature of Parliament. Mm-hmm. Like if an amendment was brought, for example, to reduce Parliament by a half, it's unlikely that Parliament would pass it.
Right.
But the people themselves would pass it. So that provision was put in to provide for that situation where Parliament does not like something, but the people have the ultimate power to make the decision. But in this case, we have things that Parliament is in support of, mm-hmm. but because of the provisions of Article 255 that there are some matters that must go to referendum, mm-hmm. and the promoters of the bill decided to bring it as a composite bill, including all matters.
All right.
Then everything had to go to referendum anyway. Yeah.
All right. All right. So when will you dispense the bill in Parliament?
We would hope if the committee brings in the report by next week, then we could either start the debate by Thursday next week, mm-hmm. and probably complete it with the week after. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. And Honorable Kimunya,
it shouldn't take more than 2-3 days. Yeah.
It should. Okay. So we are looking at the budget, the 2021-2022 budget, and it does not have a budget for the referendum. And the IEBC talked about requiring 15 billion shillings to actually conduct a free and fair referendum poll. So at what point will you factor in this amount, the 15 billion shillings that's required by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission?
Within the budget policy statement, yes, there was no provision. But we don't have the estimates yet. And this will be tabled within the month of April. So we would expect once the bill passes through Parliament in the next 2 weeks, then Treasury will factor in the issue of the referendum within their printed estimates, which will then be discussed. It's anticipated that, yes, that will be one of the issues coming up. Mm-hmm. It's not in the BPS, but it's known that it's an event that's going to happen, and we'll have to get funding within the estimates. If it doesn't happen within the estimates, we can also provide for it within a supplementary. Mm-hmm.
All right, and Honorable Kimunya, I really don't know what your response would be, because among some Jubilee members of Parliament, especially from the Tanga wing, you have been accused of not being the uniting factor when it comes to this whole BBI bill and the Building Bridges initiative. So how are you going to ensure that members of the House support the bill unanimously to be passed without having to go to the division?
Let me put it this way, that all members of Parliament are at liberty to vote one way or the other, depending on their convictions and the people they represent. My concern is to have as many people as possible speaking in the same way. So I'm reaching out to as many as possible, but also respecting the individual freedom to vote one way or the other. And it's the same that happened in the county assemblies. We talked to as many as possible, and they voted. Between now and next week, we'll reach out to as many members of Parliament. And the most important thing is to let them understand, so that people vote based on facts rather than what is happening on social media, what's happening in the funerals, what's happening in churches. But based on the facts, right? And that's what we want them to debate, because that will go unanswered. Then after that, when they vote, one way or the other, people must remember they are voting, and that will be on record, that so-and-so voted for this or voted against this based on certain issues. And I would expect everyone voting against, especially, would have put the facts on the Hansard as to why they are opposed to, or what section they are opposed to. So that even those who come after us in future can be able to pick part of that debate and bring in future amendments because there's some evidence as to why it's good or not good. Yeah.
Right.
But by and large, I think the mood so far is that people will support.
So are you 100% sure that the bill will be passed without going for a division?
I'm a super optimist, but if we go to a division, I'm actually not sure members would want a division, because, in a division, then you're put on permanent record who said yes, who said no. Yeah? And some people may suffer from that, because in the event that it passes overwhelmingly, and there's 20 of you who say no, it could have implications on your political career. Yeah? It's a career limiting move.
Right.
So it's always safer to go through the voice vote, which doesn't capture who said yes or who said no.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So let's shift our focus to the pending bills in Parliament.
Yeah.
And kindly talk to us about some of the pending bills, because the most crucial pending bills currently as we speak, we have the Division of Revenue and the County Allocation Bills.
Yes, the Division of Revenue Bill has not been introduced into the House, but because now we passed the BPS, it kind of opens the door for it to be introduced in the House. And when that happens, then we'll give a priority, because it also opens the door for the estimates to then be introduced in the House, and also for the County Allocation Bill to be introduced in the Senate. So that's a priority bill. We will be processing that as soon as possible. We also have a motion that we need to dispense one way or the other, and my preference is, of course, positively, in terms of the agreement between Kenya and the United Kingdom to enhance the trade between the two countries, the Economic Partnership Agreement. I would hope that we can dispense with that today, because yesterday was the end of the temporary MOU that we are using. And we don't want our farmers being subjected to taxes and duties, because Kenya is not like the other countries within the East Africa region.
Right.
We are a lower middle income country.
Right.
The others are least developed countries. So they can access the market, we can't.
Right.
Without having to pay duties on the general system of preferences.
All right.
So that's its priority. And then obviously we also have a long-standing issue of the aviation bill that sets a pace on terms of how we rescue KQ and sort out our aviation sector. I would also like to see that dispensed with, so that we can have predictability and certainty in that direction.
All right.
And then we also have the supplementary coming. Then there's a few other small bills that we would also want to get rid of as soon as we can.
All right. So if I may put it this way, you are the eye of the government, in Parliament, and specifically at the National Assembly, because you're the majority leader. And we are talking about 16 months to the next general elections. Yeah. And the 2021-2022 budget is one of the crucial budgets, for President Uhuru Kenyatta. Yeah. And can you talk to us what the main focus will be when it comes to implementing the President's Big Four agenda?
You see, the whole budget is mainstreamed, or the Big Four has been mainstreamed into the budget since 2017, because that was a Jubilee promise. And we've seen infrastructure support, we've seen houses coming up in Pangani and all that, and that will continue. We've seen more investments in terms of manufacturing, which will continue. And basically all the enabling, the investments in TVETs, investments in education, yeah? So that will continue into next year. And if you look at the whole budget, it's all geared towards that, yeah. All right. Plus, of course, now the mitigation for post-COVID recovery. Right. Yeah.
But then even as much as you're telling us about the development agenda, of the Big Four agenda of President Uhuru Kenyatta, at the same time, the Jubilee administration, especially President Uhuru Kenyatta, has been accused of abandoning the vision that he had for the country in terms of the Big Four agenda, and now his focus is actually on the Building Bridges initiative. So how are you going to ensure that the key priorities of the Jubilee administration, the Big Four agenda, is actually implemented, and that members of the Jubilee party on the floor of the House ensure that everything goes as envisioned by the President?
I think the whole issue about the President abandoning the Big Four was some mischievous allegations by some people who, although they're in government, seem to have abandoned government and gone on a campaign trail. And then they actually assume everyone else has abandoned government. The Big Four has been ongoing. It has been an integral part of the budget. It has been an integral part of the work of the president, right? And has not been substituted by BBI. BBI has been supplementary to the Big Four. Yeah. You've seen the construction going on, you've seen the roads, you've seen the investment in Dogokundu in Mombasa, you've seen the opening up of the port in Kisumu, all of that to facilitate trade within the East Africa region. We've seen what's happening within the trains to facilitate transport within the city. You've seen the good work happening within the NMS in Nairobi and opening up of the health facilities. About 7 have been opened up within Nairobi, as all part of achieving the universal health coverage. So, you know, the Big Four has been going on, but there are some people at high level in government who don't seem to know what's happening in government because they're busy campaigning, and they've been going mischievously and telling people that the president has abandoned the Big Four in favor of BBI. Now, president is running the Big Four, and is also very keen on BBI because we want the unification of the country, and yeah.
All right. Yeah. Amos Kimunya, on that note, I'd like to say asante sana once again for joining us here on KTN News Center, talking to us about some of the pending bills and the BBI bill and the state of the nation at the National Assembly and the way forward. Taking me to another commercial break here on KTN News Center. In just a few minutes, I come back with this and more news during the second hour of News Center.